الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Inshallah ta'ala, we continue with the hadith of the book of Bulugh al-Maram in the chapter of As-Siyam, fasting. And before we start, inshallah ta'ala, I remind myself and everyone else that this is the action of sitting in the masjid, learning the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. This is a great ni'mah from Allah, great blessings from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a person to be in the house of Allah, listening to the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. And with the intentions of رفع الجهل عن النفس, with the intention that we lift the ignorance from our own selves by learning, and to learn also to be means to lift away ignorance from others, seeking the rewards from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone. And we are in times where the statement of one of the great Imam, he was the Sheikh of Imam Malik rahimahullah, his name is Rabi'at al-Ra'i, when he said that لا ينبغي لأحد عنده شيء من العلم أن يضيع نفسه. It does not befit for someone that has something of the knowledge that he ruin himself. Ruining oneself when a person turns away from knowledge, that's ruining oneself. And if someone has something of the knowledge, has the means to learn, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him the ability to understand, the ability to memorize, the ability to act upon the ilm, because that's what the objective of the ilm is, then he should not ruin himself. And the ummah is in need of those who diligently study the knowledge with the proper understanding of it, the way of the early generations of Islam, and to hold fast to the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to convey it the way it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. As we said, one of the intentions of seeking knowledge is that a person, when he dies, when he passes away, the knowledge that he passed on after him is as it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. So the new generation seeing the deen of Islam the way it was at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, not a newer version of it, not a distorted understanding of the deen of Islam. And that requires so much patience, sabr, and dedication, and mujahada, and struggling and striving, and to prepare oneself not to be the most popular maybe or whatever. It doesn't matter, as long as a person is holding fast to the deen of Allah, following the ways of the ulama, so that we don't initiate things from our own. Again, this is lineage that we need to follow. This is where the hadith where we stopped, where the hadith of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma. This is in the subject of al-hijama for the fasting person. He says, وعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم احتجم وهو محرم واحتجم وهو صائم. رواه البخاري. The hadith of al-hijama, he mentions three hadiths, one after the other in the same page. And this has different opinions when it comes to the hijama of the fasting person. Does it break his fast or not? So the first hadith, it will be brief inshallah ta'ala, as this is the way of dealing with the hadith inshallah. Otherwise we can go in so much details. So this first one, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, he said that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam underwent hijama, which is the cupping, while in a state of al-ihram, and he also underwent cupping while fasting, reported by Imam al-Bukhari. So this hadith, as you see, al-Zahir al-Hadith, the apparent meaning of the hadith, that this is something that is permissible when a person is fasting and it doesn't break fasting. And as we know the hijama, what the hijama is, which is cupping, but the hijama, when it's mentioned, it refers to blood comes out. So it's when as the Prophet ﷺ mentioned, al-hajim is the one that do the hijama. He has to cut the skin after making sure that it's ready for that, and he takes the blood that is basically impurities, or in that sense. So the subject of al-hijama here, that means blood comes out, not the dry hijama. Even though some had talked also about the dry hijama. Does it also break the fast or not? But of course the majority are upon that both do not break the fasting because of this first hadith. So this is احتجم وهو صائم. And some said this is the later action of the Prophet ﷺ. So some said it was abrogated because of the next hadith. So let's see the next hadith also inshallah. He says وعن شداد بن أوس رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أتى على رجل بالبقيع وهو يحتجم في رمضان فقال أفطر الحاجم والمحجوم. رواه الخمسة إلا الترمذي وصححه أحمد وابن خزيمة وابن حبان. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came upon a man in Al-Baqi' while he was undergoing hijama in Ramadan. He sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the one who cups or makes hijama and the one being cupped, al-mahjum, has broken his fast. Both, the one that does the hijama and the one that the hijama is done on him, both had broken their fast. And this is Rawahul Khamsa. As we said, Al-Khamsa are Imam Ahmad and the four Sunan. But he said, Illa Tirmidhi. So Imam Ahmad and Sunan Abi Dawood and Sunan Ibn Majah and Sunan Nisa'i, not At-Tirmidhi. وصححه أحمد وابن خزيمة وابن حبان. So this hadith, this is the madhab of Imam Ahmad, that al-hijama breaks the fast for both the hajim and mahjum. To understand just the essence of it, inshallah, is to see also that the differences of opinions are not just like that. We're taking the hadith from its apparent meaning and then just someone else, maybe he didn't see the other hadith. Sometimes it's the case, but it's not. Most of the differences of opinion is not like this. The imma, they seen these hadith. But it's the different principles where sometimes even like in this particular matter, here when the Prophet ﷺ said that they broke their fast, is it because of the reason for it? And that's why oftentimes ulama, they talk about al-illah, or the illah, the reason behind it. Is it something ma'qul or something ta'abbudi, غير ma'qul? Meaning, is it something physical? Or the reason why he said that it's something that is non-physical? That makes a big difference, especially when there's differences of a hadith and differences of opinion. If it's something physical, that means something physical happens to the person, so as a result of that, that breaks the fast. As some said, or many said, it's the weakness that the person would then have, and that's why physical weakness after the hijama. So that sounds authentic. Everyone in the chain of narration is fulfill the criteria of the narrators of the hadith. There's even ittisal in the sanad. The sanad is continuous. Everything looks nice. So someone doesn't have much knowledge of the hadith, if he trying to look into al-rijal and the men of the chain of narrations in the books of al-tarajim, he would find everything is fine and they all met each other and the hadith is authentic. And that's why al-ilal is a subject for the great scholars of hadith, because it's something beyond just the sanad and the matan. This is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected this deen. And there are reasons for it, of course, not just the feelings of the alim. Sometimes is it-tafarrud. That means this is the only narration that is mentioned in the subject, for example. And it doesn't fit well with everything else, and other hadith might give a different meaning. Or it's different than what I'm just giving some examples. Different than what the narrator of the hadith, he would give fatwa of. Like Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said this, but he would say something else opposite to what he said in the hadith. So why would he do that when he's the one that narrated this hadith? Maybe the hadith has some, just to make up the days. Some of the days that a person breaks his fast, it requires both al-qada and the kaffara, and feeding a miskin with every day. And some requires only kaffara, only to feed for every day that a person missed. So here, hukm al-musafir. In another wording, it was said to him, so he called for a cup of water after Asr and drank, narrated by Muslim. This hadith, of course, we have to add the other hadith to it. But as you see here, the Prophet ﷺ, they were in the year of conquest of Mecca. That means this is towards the end of the life of the Prophet ﷺ. That means this is not something that would be abrogated afterwards. So he was fasting, ﷺ, and this was in Ramadan, while traveling. Till they reached this place, Qura' al-Ghami. Al-Ghami is the place, and the Qura' is like the tip of a higher place, like a mountain or so. So this is a place close to Mecca. فصام الناس. So the people were fasting, like the Prophet ﷺ while traveling. Then ثم دعا بقدح من ماء. The Prophet ﷺ asked for a qadah. Al-qadah is the cup that doesn't have any handle to it. That has water in it. فرفعه. He lifted up حتى نظر الناس إليه. So that intentionally for people to see him عليه الصلاة والسلام that he's drinking. ثم شرب, then he drank. فقيل له بعد ذلك, it was said to him afterwards, إن بعض الناس قد صام. Some of the people, even though seeing the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, they continued to fast. قال أولئك العصاة أولئك العصاة. They are the disobedient ones from al-ma'siyah. They are the disobedient ones. This hadith, as the next, or fi love, as we heard it, it has a circumstance here that was there. Because before we get into the other hadith, when a person is fasting, he has it's permissible for a traveler to break his fast, and there's no blame on someone that breaks his fast without any excuse. Just the fact that he's a traveler, he has the excuse to break his fast. The question comes in, which is better for him, if he's a traveler, to break his fast or not. But before we get into this, first of all, this is something that is consensus. There's no doubt that for a traveler to break his fast, this is permissible. There's no doubt about the permissibility of it because of the many hadith. And in some of the narrations where the Prophet ﷺ, when he was traveling also, and some of the people, they fasted, and some people did not fast. And it also was an expedition. And in the narration he says, فَلَمْ يَعِبْ الصَّائِمْ عَلَى الْمُفْتِرِ وَلَمْ يَعِبْ الْمُفْتِرِ عَلى الصَّائِمِ. As-Sa'im did not condemn the one that broke his fast, and the one that broke his fast did not condemn the one that was fasting. And one of the narrations, when in Sahih Muslim, when the Prophet ﷺ, they were traveling, and it was a very hot day, and as the narrator of the hadith, he says, the best among us is the one that has his kisa, or his garment, to shield him from the sun, because of the hot day. And then when they went down, or they sat down for their camp while traveling, سقط الصوام. The fasting people, they fell out of the fatigue and the tiredness. And وقام المفطرون, those who were breaking their fast, those who were not fasting, they are the ones that set up the camp and prepared the food and made everything. So the Prophet ﷺ afterwards, he said, ذهب المفطرون اليوم بالأجر. The muftirun, those who broke their fast, they surpassed everyone with the ajr, with the rewards. Because the fasting ones were not able to do what the muftirun did. So this is no doubt about this. That particular incident, the Prophet ﷺ, when he was told that the people are in so much tiredness and they're not able to continue, and now they're going to in Fath Makkah to meet their enemies. And actually the longer version of the hadith also in Sahih Muslim, that a day or two before, the Prophet ﷺ was told that, and he said to the people that this doesn't matter if they break or not, but he did not push for them to break their fast. And then when they were closer to Mecca, as this place, then the Prophet ﷺ commanded the people, not that the ruling here for any traveler becomes it's that he has to break his fast, but in that incident. So when he drank ﷺ in front of everyone, and some people still continued to fast, thinking that this is just, the Prophet ﷺ is giving them the easy way, but they can go by the azima or the determination. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, أُولَٰئِكَ الْعُصَاة, meaning disobeyed the command of the Prophet ﷺ in that incident. His orders ﷺ. And that's why the next lafz here, فَقِيلَ لَهُ إِنَّ النَّاسَ قَدْ شَقَّ عَلَيْهِمُ الصِّيَامُ. And that's why for those who fasting for them, if they're traveling, it becomes difficult for them, definitely it's better for them to break their fast. If because of traveling, it becomes difficult for them to fast, then it's from the sunnah, and it's better for them to break their fast. If a person is not tired and everything is fine, and while traveling, is it better for him to break his fast or not? There is opinions in this, right? Also in Madhab Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, anybody knows the opinion in the Madhab? Did we study, did we cover it? That it's best for the person traveling to break his fast. Even if he has no issues, no problems, nothing whatsoever. Because إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَى رُخَصُ كَمَّا يُحِبُّ أَن تُؤْتَى عَزَائِمُ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love for the person to take the rukhsa, to take the ease, the same way that He loves for you to take the azima, to take the determination, and to be upon what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from you. But the jumhur, the majority of the ulama, that it's jaiz, it's permissible. And some would go into details. Again, as we said, if it's easier for the person to break his fast, and that's, mashallah, is good for him. Sometimes it's the easier thing is to fast. Because it's Ramadan, everybody's fasting. And if he breaks his fast, he has to make up the day. He doesn't want to make up the day, it's easier. Ramadan is in the winter time, whatever. So a person should be at ease, but not to make it difficult for oneself. This is what is against the sunnah. People are traveling and they say, oh, no way I would break my fast. Why not should I break my fast? Everybody's sitting in the air conditioning, things like this. All of these excuses is of no validity to it whatsoever. And that's why no one is to blame anyone or to say, why would you break your fast? It's easy. If you're a traveler, it's permissible or even recommended for a person to break his fast. And as we all know, Al-Hiyal fil Islam is forbidden. To play tricks in the deen of Islam, this is not permissible. So is it permissible for someone to travel just to break his fast? No. It's not permissible for someone to initiate traveling just for the sake of breaking his fast. And Safarul Ma'asiyah, if someone travels for a sin, it is not permissible for him to break his fast. Right? If someone is traveling to commit a sin, then it is the rukhas, even shortening the salah is not valid for him. He should not shorten the salah. A sinner, he would make salah and fast? Yes, everybody has to fast. Righteous and sinner and the worst Muslim and the best Muslim, everybody has to fast. Everybody has to make their 5 daily salah, even if he's traveling to commit a sin. It's not to approve the sin, he should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is a bad sign for that individual, but should he leave the salah because he's traveling to commit a sin? But for that person, see subhanAllah how he's committing a sin and he would not make qasr in his salah, according to the opinion of some of the ulama. Why? Because the rukhsa is not for a sinful act. And the same thing with fasting. So this is the first hadith. وعن حمزة ibn عمرو الأسلمي رضي الله عنه أنه قال يا رسول الله أجد بي قوة على الصيام في السفر فهل علي جناح؟ فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم هي رخصة من الله فمن أخذ بها فحسن ومن أحب أن يصوم فلا جناح عليه. رواه مسلم. يقول أصله في المتفق من حديث عائشة أن حمزة ابن عمرو سأل. So here Hamza ibn Amr al-Aslami radiallahu anhu, he said that, O Messenger of Allah, I find within myself the strength to fast while traveling. So is there any sin upon me? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, it is a concession from Allah, rukhsa from Allah. So whoever takes it has done well. And whoever prefers to fast, then there is no sin upon him. So he asked the question, فَهَلْ عَلَيَّ جُنَاحٌ? Junah, that means shortcomings, mistakes, if I break my fast, because I find myself has the strength that I can continue to fast. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said rukhsa. And the rukhsa, without going into the details of in usul and things like this, it goes from something, you go from a state that is difficult to a state that is easier. That's what the rukhsa is. Right? Al-azima is the opposite. You go from the ease to what's more difficult. Meaning, it's time for you to make Salatul Fajr. Right? That you have to take the azima. There's no rukhsa for you to stay at home, for example. You have to come to the masjid, you're close to the masjid. You have to take the azima. There's no rukhsa for you, unless you're far away from the masjid or a person is sick or afraid for his own self. So he has to take the azima. And the azima, that means it took him from one state that he sleeps and the comfort of his home and the easy state to the more challenging one. We don't say difficult, but this is what the azima is. So when you see the word azima versus a rukhsa, a person took the azima from the rukhsa. The rukhsa is you can break your fast. Someone took the azima. He wants to take the more difficult choice for him. It's permissible. In principle, it's permissible for him in this case. But if it's best for him, if it's easier for him to break the fast. So هي رخصة من الله, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فَمَنْ أَخَذَ بِهَا فَحَسَنْ. Whoever takes it, فَحَسَنْ. This is good for him. And that's why those who said that it's better for him, because the Prophet ﷺ said, فَهُوَ حَسَنْ. It's good for him. وَمَنْ أَحَبَّ أَنْ يَصُومَ فَلَا جُنَاحَ عَلَيْهِ. And whoever wants to fast, see the statement, no sin on him. So you see the two statements, that it makes the person, the reader, feel that breaking the fast is better. for him because it's a rukhsah from Allah. Take the rukhsah from Allah and be at ease. But if you want to fast, لا جناح عليه, there is no sin for the person. And of course some narrations were in the battle of Badr, that the hadith that everyone was not fasting except the Prophet ﷺ and Abdullah ibn Rawah. So the situations can be different. So there's no one set rule according to the majority. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. And as mentioned before, a person might also take the rukhsah and not to feel bad about oneself if you take the rukhsah and you're happy that you took the rukhsah. Someone is traveling and it's Ramadan and he's eating. He feels sinful? No, he should not feel sinful. You're happy that you're breaking your fast. If it's a few miles away, you see the difference here. You're committing one of the major sins with the act of eating. But now you're a traveler and you're eating and drinking and you're happy that you're eating and drinking. Alhamdulillah, you're not hungry, you're not thirsty. Right? And this is a rukhsah from Allah. And this is the ease of the deen. It's not because of what you feel, what you like, or what more sacrifice, less sacrifice. It's about the obedience to Allah. This is how the deen is. And why we need to stress on this, there is some level of deen, and to be warned against this, that it's based on taste, al-dhawq, what you feel, al-wujd. Right? I'm not sure if these terminologies are familiar. What you find your heart upon. And sometimes it goes into the khurafat, deen based on fairy tales, not based on wahy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that's why to understand the wahy, this is what is meant to be, and one of which is this case, inshallah. So the last statement was وَأَصْلُهُ فِي الْمُتَّفَقِ من حديث عائشة أن حمزة ibn Amr سأل. Other in متفق عليه in hadith in Bukhari Muslim, that he asked the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام, as the word of the hadith is, not that he قال سأل, asked, which is the same thing. The next hadith, he says وعن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال رخص للشيخ الكبير أن يفطر ويطعم عن كل يوم مسكينا ولا قضاء عليه. Of course, before that there is ahkam in the traveling, right? What constitutes traveling and for how many days and all of these things. The same thing applies here for fasting as it applied for salah. So what makes the person permissible for him to make qasr of the salah because of traveling applies the same thing for fasting. And there is differences of opinions, of course, when it comes to the distance, when it comes to the days. So just to be brief, the distance is what's considered to be among the locals is traveling. The urf, what is known to be traveling, then that is traveling, is considered to be safar. So if the locals, they do not consider a certain place as traveling, then it's not traveling. Even if it's a distance is suburb, sometimes can be long distance, but it's not traveling. And when does a person permissible for him to break his fast if it's traveling? Is once he set himself out of the locality that he's in. He sets on the road and the city that he's from is behind his back, and now he's on the highway on the road. This is when he can start to break his fast. Even though normally if he's not traveling, he cannot break his fast in that place. So, but once he departs from his city, completely clear, that means this is where he can break his fast. For how long? The majority, the jumhur, is upon the 3 nights and 4 days. This is the majority of the ulama are upon this, and have the evidence of the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he went for the conquest of Mecca. Yes, it's a very strong differences of opinions, but the majority are upon the 3 nights and 4 days. So if a person knows that he's traveling for 2 weeks, he has the rukhsa to break his fast on the way. On the way, yes, he can break his fast. Once he reaches destination, then he is as if he's one of the locals, as long as he stays in the same place for more than 3 nights and 4 days, the 3 nights. So, not that he make the rukhsa and shorten the salah and break his fast for 3 days and then he completes. No, he knows that he's going to stay more than that. So once he reaches, then means he treats himself as a local. If it's 3 nights and 3 days, excluding the days of traveling. So you travel Thursday and you return back Monday. Thursday and Monday, they do not count. Even though you reached Thursday, and Monday you traveled and you had a portion of the day that you were still there, you don't count these 2 days from the 3 nights and 4 days. So clear? And again, we don't have to go over the many differences of opinions. And this is what the major scholars have, with regards to like Sheikh Ibn Baz and others, they used to make sure that this is the majority of the opinion that of the ulama to be observed. طيب عن ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما قال رخص للشيخ الكبير أن يفطر ويطعم عن كل يوم مسكينا ولا قضاء عليه. رواه الدارقطني والحاكم وصححاه. That Abdullah ibn Abbas رضي الله عنهما, he said, concession was given to the elderly person to break the fast and to feed one poor person for each day. And there was no makeup required for him. Reported by Darqutni and Al-Hakim, and they both authenticated it. This refers also to the ayah of the Quran that وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ فِدْيَةٌ طَعَامُ مِسْكِينٍ. This was originally the case when Ramadan was made for the Muslims to fast. Originally, it was not mandatory, as it stated in the ayat of the Siyam. It was an optional thing. If someone يُطِيقُونَهُ, someone has the capacity and the energy to fast, he can feed and not fast. They had the option first. Till what ayah? شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصم. So what is the ayah that made fasting of Ramadan mandatory? This ayah. Not يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام, which is the previous ayah. Because this was initially, it was the option here for the people whether to fast or not. No excuses. Then the ruling was that it's obligatory upon everyone, but the ayah that says وَعَلَى الَّذِينَ يُطِيقُونَهُ stayed, as Abdullah ibn Abbas, was not abrogated, but stayed only for those who are mentioned in this hadith and others, meaning a Sheikh al-Kabir, someone that reached old in age, or someone that has permanent sickness that he cannot, and Allah knows best, he won't be able to fast. So not that marad or sickness that he hoped for it to be cured. In that case, if there's no hope for cure, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best, then he takes the same ruling as a Shaykh al-Kabir, someone that is very old in age. There's no qada for them, there's no making up the days for them, only the kafar. وَيُطْعِمُ عَنْ كُلِّ يَوْمٍ مِسْكِينًا وَلَا قَضَاءَ عَلَيْهِ. So knowing that, then briefly, when we talk about those who have the excuse to break their fast. So we have here, just writing the notes so that we don't forget anyone. Someone that fasting is not obligatory upon them, and they have upon them al-qada' faqat. So for those who have excuses to break their fast, one category is they have to have qada' only. They make up the days and that's it. No kafara, nothing whatsoever. Who are these people? Someone that is a travel, as we heard, a sick person, that sickness that is yurja bur'u, hoping for that to be cured, cold, fever, something, whatever. And of course, what is the marad? Any sickness? The sickness that would make the person weaker if he fasts. Fasting would cause the sickness to be delayed, the cure, and everything is by the will of Allah, or make his situation worse. Sometimes a person, he feels good at the end of sickness. But if he breaks his fast, if he fasts, the trustworthy Muslim doctor would say, but this can delay your cure, and the curer is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in that case, a person can still break his fast. No. Now, the people, those who are diabetic, they have the excuse unless it's okay for them to fast. Because, if someone like this, because it's a more complicated situation, as the doctors, they say. A person diabetic might fast. He might be able to fast and his life is okay from the beginning to the end of the day. But this can complicate their disease even though they're able to fast. So that's why to ask someone is to ask a trustworthy Muslim doctor that knows the importance of fasting, that he would say to the person, break his fast. Because again, as we said, he might be okay for the immediate sense, but it messes up his readings and things like this over time. So that means it's best for him to break his fast. Some say no way that he should fast. A diabetic person, he should always break his fast. So it depends on the situation. Allahu A'lam. Right, then if that's the case, then they break their fast. Right, then they break their fast and they go into the next category, which is they make kafara only. They don't have to make up the fast because this is a continuous disease. But always refer back to, for one's case, to a Muslim trustworthy doctor, or if it's not a Muslim, but he's trustworthy and he takes the information and asks a Muslim doctor that what's the ruling in this. Wallahu a'lam. So again, going to the qada only. So al-marid alladhi yurja bur'u, the sick person that hoping for the cure of his sickness. And the sickness, as we said, either it makes worsen the situation of the person if he fasts, or delays the cure. So not anything that a person considers himself as sick that means he can break his fast. Al-musafir, as we heard, the traveler person, the one that breaks his fast to save a life, for example, as we said. The woman in her menses, she has to make up the days, no kafara, just to make up the days that she broke her fast in Ramadan. And nufasa, the one that has the afterbirth bleeding. And now, if you're writing this down, al-hamil wal-murda', and we have to be specific. The pregnant woman and the one that breastfeeds, if she fears for herself, then she has al-qada only. She broke her fast because of her own condition, not because of her child, for her own condition. In that case, she has qada only. She has to make up the day only, and not with it kafara, not feeding, only to make up the day. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala permit for her, even if she accumulates many days, 1 year pregnant, 1 year breastfeeding, 1 year like this, she has so many days, be at ease, and when it's time, she can make up these days. So if she fears for herself, so these cases were al-qada only, to make up the days only. Musafir, traveling person, sick, saved a life, menses, afterbirth bleeding, the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding, if she fears for herself, or the reason why she's breaking her fast is for her own health and not for her child. The third case, which breaking the fast and the person has to make up the day and to make it'am or feeding. And that is in the case where the pregnant woman and the breastfeeding one, if she fears for her child. The reason why she broke her fast is because of the child. You can add to it herself too. But if it's herself, that means qada only. So again, if it's herself and her child both, only qada, only make up the days. But if her child only, right, she's breaking her fast for her child, that means she make up the day and the it'am. Now the feeding comes in place. Who's the one that feeds? The wali of the child. So the husband is the one that feeds, not her. Why? Because she broke her fast to save the life of his child, and he's the one that is financially responsible for it. This is just to sum the differences of opinions when it comes to this. So this is qada and it'am, feeding. The one that has kafara only kafara, only feeding only, this is the two cases. The Sheikh, as it's mentioned in this narration, Sheikh al-Kabir, someone that is very old in age, that he's not sick, even if mashallah his health is good, but he's very old, very weak to fast. Just the fact that he's very old, then he has the excuse and he feed up a poor for every day. And Anas radiallahu anhu, when he was very old, he would make the kafara. He would bring 30 people in Ramadan and he would feed them. Because the feeding, if a person is not fasting whatsoever in the entire month, to be away from the differences of opinion, do that after the month starts. Don't do that before the month. After the month starts. Does it make a difference? He's still sick, but yes, wait till the month starts. Then you can do it in the beginning of the month. For the entire month, that's fine. But for 30 people, or the same person every day. And al-it'am here is the mud of whatever is saved of food, whether you have a choice of giving grains from the local food of the people, and the mud is half of a sa', something that 1 kilogram or 2.5 pounds or something of that nature for each day. Or to fix food for a poor person, and the food that is fixed is sufficient for him. If he eats, he's full. He doesn't want to eat for some time. So this is with the food. But here the kafara is for the old person and for the one that is sick, permanent sickness. As we said, the different sicknesses, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure everyone. Some people, if you want to go for categorizing the entire Muslim Ummah, some people there is no qada for them, and there's no kafara for them, and their fasting is not even valid for them, from them. What is it? A child, for example, right? So this comes under this. Al-Majnoon, someone that is insane, he lost his mind. Some people think that if there's someone insane or has mental sickness that he's not aware of things, there's no kafara, there's no qada. رُفِعَ عَنُ الْقَلَمِ. The qalam has been lifted. They don't have to do anything for him whatsoever. And whether he is majnoon, like he lost it completely, or someone that is his mukhtalit in his thinking, a mental sickness, that he's not aware of what he's doing. He does not know what obligation versus not and things like this, whether it's because of old age or anything else. So this is with regards to those who have the kafara or the it'am and the qada. Is it clear? No. The old person? Yeah, that's the it'am. The very old person, they only have the it'am. They only feed. Oh no, very good. If someone that is very old and he is, what's the word for it? He's denial? He's in denial. Senile. So if a very old person is senile, and what senile means? What's the definition of senile? In English. No thought process anymore. That means اختلاط في العقل. That means he's not comprehending his actions, right? So, and if he's young and have this issue in him, he's not aware of what he's doing. There is no kafara, no it'am, no qada, nothing whatsoever. So, whether he's old or young, if someone lost his mind, he lost the ability to think and to comprehend things, there's no kafara for him. There's no it'am for him. No. Now, for the woman that is between pregnancy and breastfeeding, she accumulates many, many days. Of course, there are opinions that is only she has the it'am to do and not to make up the days. But this opinion that we said, and this is to be away also from the differences of opinion, especially that she's young, she counts the days. And whenever her health and the time permits, then she make up the days. And if to be even in the safer side, if a year comes and she did not make up the fast, feed if she has the means, mashallah, sadaqah is nice, to feed for every day, and then she still have the days. If she did not have the chance to make up the days, no one needs to make up the days for her. If she dies before making up the days, she fed already, and she took that opinion. It was many days. But count the days and make sure that it's done over years, and it's done, mashallah, especially when people are young and they take their time. In few years, then it's sufficient, inshallah. True. Now, if a woman or any excuse to break the fast, whether for the woman here in this case, she broke her fast because of the child, and usually these things are determined by the medical doctor. He would say, you're good, but because of your child, you need to break your fast. Or someone, just the fact that, let me say this also, any woman that is hamil or murda', pregnant or breastfeeding, she already have the excuse to break her fast. Does she have to consult with the medical doctor? She doesn't have to. She has already the excuse. Because of this ayah, that is included, and it's stated by Abdullah ibn Abbas and others. The issue is about the kafar. And the food has to be fed to poor people. It has to be poor Muslims, and it has to reach them as food. So you can give money to someone that they would purchase the food and feed the poor. And it doesn't have to be local. Whatever poor person that they can feed. No. According to the opinion that we said, is that if she is breaking her fast only for her own sake, then she has qada only. She make up the days only. Once you add the child in it, that means it's both. She has qada and she has the kafar.
Whether she was pregnant or breastfeeding. If it's because of both, she has to do both.
Yeah, whether she's pregnant or breastfeeding. Now, because the child now, she's breaking her fast for the child, not for her own self. Or for both, then the qada and the kafara. Or the qada and the it'am. Kafara is it'am anyway, but just to make sure that it's clear. And yes, qada and kafara now. Anything else? Any questions? تفضل. Naam, the traveler, he has to make up the day, of course. These are the ones that have to have qada. No. The categories of people where they don't have to feed, they only make up the days. This is the musafir, the traveler, the one that was sick and temporary sickness, and the menses, the woman with her menses after birth bleeding, the hamil, the pregnant, and the breastfeeding if she broke her fast for her own self. All of these people, they break their fast and they only make up the days. No it'am, no feeding is required for them. And also, some of the ulama, they said, also for a person to be always on the safe side. If the next Ramadan comes in and a person did not make up the days, did not make the qada, then to feed a poor person for every day, and you still have to make up the days. So just to add this up, inshallah, and it's to be done only one time, and if the next Ramadan comes in. No, the qada is sufficient, inshallah. But as said, to be on the safe side is that she would feed if she can, so that if she's not able to make up the days, at least she fed. Now, for the one that, say the situation of the diabetes, for example, either that he's not able to make up the days because this is a permanent sickness. So when a healthy diabetic patient, he is told fasting is not good for you, that means he should not fast for the rest of his life. This is how things are, because now he's healthy and he's been told not to fast, so that things does not become more complicated. Unless Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure him completely from diabetes, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure everyone, then that's a different situation, because the condition is still there with him. Right. The doctor is to give that judgment. That's why, again, it's different from one person to the other. Yeah, if they fast, and taking insulin does not break the fast. So if a diabetic person takes insulin and he fasts, and he was told that this is good, no harm on him, then fast counts, of course. Right. If he's able to make up the fast, that means his condition is in such a way that some days he's able, some days he's not, and assuming that the days that he's able to fast is not going to complicate things. Again, that's why is to consult with a trustworthy medical doctor. If he says you can fast, yes, but if you feel this, then break your fast, then in that case, that person would make up the days. No. What is the difference between kafara and fidya? They're usually synonyms to one another. But fidya sometimes it's more specific. But it's kafara also, expiation now. Oh, question. No, there's questions online. طيب. Inshallah, we'll have questions still before Maghrib, inshallah. So if you have anything, go ahead. Is there any particular way to determine the urf of what's considered traveling? Some people seem to be more used to traveling longer distance than others. The urf is what's known to one's locality is traveling. Let's say, for example, if you are from what? Can you say where we at? No, if you're here, for example, right? If you're in Chicago, right? If you're in Chicago land, I guess, right? So if you're in Chicago in the city, is Lombard considered traveling? Is Oakbrook considered traveling? No. Distant-wise, what's the furthest locality within Chicago that you might think of that's still considered suburbs? What's the furthest suburbs from downtown Chicago? Aurora, is it considered traveling? How many miles? 30, that's it? 40. Right. But anyway, so it's, but if someone's going to, name a city. Huh? What is it? Springfield. Springfield's obvious, right? Springfield, everybody will consider that traveling. Sometimes you can use the mileage as a way to help. Where some of the ulama, they mentioned miles to make it help, but it's not necessarily has to follow the miles. So if it's the 48 miles, right, this can be means of help, but not necessarily 48. So if it happens that 48 not considered a place that is 48 miles from here, that is not considered for the locals to be traveling, right, then that's not enough distance for the person to break his fast. Clear? So then, is Rockford considered to be local or traveling? 80 miles? Rockford 100 miles? If it's considered to the locals here that it's traveling, yes, it counts as traveling. Then you can use the distance. If it's beyond the distance that is mentioned by some of the ulama, you can use that as a guideline for a person that sounds like it's traveling. If it's more beyond the distance itself. So now, but for someone that goes back and forth every day as his work, that's not traveling. If he goes back and forth every day, this is part of his job. Is wearing a mask while making, this is yesterday, right? Or this is yesterday. Wearing a mask while making tawaf and umrah permissible? If a person has a condition, otherwise this is something that to be avoided. Because, for example, for the Muslim woman, her ihram is in her face and hands. And the Prophet ﷺ said, لا تنتقب المحرمة. The woman with ihram do not wear niqab. Niqab is the face cover that fits the face. She can cover her face from the top. And ولا تلبس القفازين, and not to wear the gloves. She covers her hand underneath her khimar. So if there's a condition, then that's a different situation. This is a need for a person, then it's okay. Can you repeat which category does the woman who fears both for herself and child fall into in terms of making up or feeding the poor? This issue, you might find there's some opinions, and this might be even much easier. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most merciful. But take this, and if a person is not able to, then it's a different situation. So again, very briefly, the pregnant and the breastfeeding, they both take the same ruling. So either the woman, she breaks her fast out of the fear for her own self, because she's weak, then in that case, she just make up the days. If it's only for herself, her child is fine, he's taken care of, that means she only make up the days. If she breaks her fast, whether for herself and her child, both, or for her child only, both cases here, that means she has to make up the days and to feed. Because now the child element is added here. So she make up the day for herself, the days, and the kafara or the it'am or the feeding from the wali, from the guardian of the child, which is, for example, the husband is the one that pays for the feeding and not her. The same thing if a woman is murda. That's why the murda doesn't have to be the mother. If a woman, her job is that she breastfeeds, right? That means she has the validity to break her fast. But when she's going to quit, Allahu A'lam. Can you swallow nasal mucus or any other mucus while fasting? The issue of one's self, mucus, saliva, things like this, the things that is, you cannot prevent yourself from swallowing it, of course there's no harm in this. One's saliva, for example. The mucus here, anything that's separated from the body, a person has to spit it out. So it's separated, so balgham or mucus, and a person is able to get it out, that means it has to be spat out, and a person should not swallow that. If intentionally swallow something like this as if it's already separated from him, that is questionable, and some said that it breaks the fast. But with the condition that it's separated. Not that a normal thing for a person is not paying attention during the day, you do it like this and you swallow. This is not what is meant. I'm not saying, don't want to say more graphic things. I mean, someone completely spat something and it's right on the top of on the tip of his mouth, and he chooses to swallow that. why would someone do something like this? Anyway, sorry about that. Anything else, Shalom? Feeding the poor, what's the definition of a poor person? The poor person, whether it's for zakah, it's well defined. The faqir and the miskin, which is, miskin is of a better case than the faqir. Both are not able to take care of their necessities every month. So one have less than half what he needs, someone has more than half, but it's still less than what he needs. And that's the necessities of life. When it comes to feeding, still this applies, and they're always in need. They're not able to live a normal life because of the need that they have. So sometimes even a poor might have an immediate circumstance that happened to him that he makes him poor even though he doesn't look like he's poor. So this is basically what a poor is. And that's why it's not something that does it have to be with the amount of income that a person gets. Sometimes it's used in whatever locality people, as they call the line of poverty in any country. Sometimes it's more luxurious than other places. But this can be guideline, not necessarily a set time or a line for a person to see who's poor and who's not. And that's why we have to be careful when it comes to the zakah. Zakah is very strict. Zakah is to be only given to those to be given to the basic necessities of life. The things that without it people are not able to live. So food, drink, roof, one plate, one pot, like this. The things that are basic necessities of one's life, and that's for the zakah. Now, one meal is sufficient to feed the poor. Is it one meal or more? Some people say iftar and suhoor, things like this. No, one meal is sufficient, but if he eats, he's full. And when a person is full, that means he doesn't have to eat for some time, if he fixes the food. Or to give like the half of a sa', which is like 2 pounds of rice or grain or something like this. If you owe someone money and they refuse to accept repayment and say that they will take it on the Day of Judgment, what should you do? Should you keep trying to pay them back? This statement of, I will take it on the Day of Judgment, we'll see you on the Day of Judgment. The one that says this is something that is, a person should fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and never to say that. Who are we to say that? As if a person, he knows that he's, mashallah, he's saved and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with him and he will have his rights taken. This is praising oneself. Even though, yes, a person would say that because he was wronged against and oppressed and things like this, but not to the best way for a person to finish all of these disputes in this life. Just the fact that people will stand by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you're oppressed, this is not something that you want to be in that state in the Day of Judgment. Unless this is the only way that you can live your life, you cannot get your rights. But if the question here, as it's mentioned, and questions, as mentioned before, this is a question. This is not a hukm, a ruling in a dispute. So that the answer to this question is not to be taken and the person goes back to that person, see, that's the hukm that I got as a result of this. No. If it's a dispute, both parties have to express their case in front of someone to judge between them, and then he would give the ruling. But a question like this is just in the category of nasiha. If you're truthful of what you're saying, keep on trying, of course, and if there's something that you owe them money, then you have to give it to them. Especially if they say something like this, try to find a way to someone else to give them the money. Why the person is saying that? He's angry because of whatever reason, maybe there's something, and try to fix the situation as much as a person can. But if someone forgives, of course doesn't seem like a person here is forgiving. If someone forgives someone when it's time for him to pay his loan, mashallah, may Allah reward them for this. But that doesn't look like it. So a person should make sure that he take care of these things before it's too late. Wallahu a'lam. Is the nafla fasting, it's like Ramadan, it's okay to break it if there is no excuse, without traveling or anything like this? Oh, when you're traveling. Right, for nafla fasting, optional fasting when you're traveling, is it better to fast or to break your fast? The same rulings apply. So some said it's better to break the fast, and some said it's according to what's easier. But unless a person is fasting for a specific reason, he's fasting because he's someone that is seeking marriage and he's not able to get married. So he's applying the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, فَعَلَيْكُمْ بِالصَّوْمِ فَإِنَّهُ لَهُ وِجَاء. Continue to fast because it protects you from the fitan. So that means this person is continuously fasting for that specific reason. So it's best for him to continue to fast. For optional fasting, if a person breaks his fast, optional fasting, he does not have to make up the days. And because the fasting person, optional fasting, he's amiru nafsi, he's the amir of his own self. Except there is a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, one is in Sahih Muslim and others, where someone was in Sha'ban. And the Prophet ﷺ asked him, هل صمت من سرر الشهر شيء? Did you fast from the surar, the middle of the month of Sha'ban, anything? Meaning the 13th, 14th, 15th. He said, one day. He said, make up 2 days after Ramadan. He's not making up something that is obligatory upon him, but means that he's always used to fast 3 days every month. And 1 month he missed that habit that he's consistent in doing. He can make it up from the way that he's still consistent with making up from the optional ibadah, like making up the night prayer during the day, like this, but not as an obligatory thing to make up. Is it permissible for a person to pay zakah earlier? Yes. And if you pay your zakah earlier, that's permissible. And then this is the day where you pay your zakah next year. On the day that you paid it earlier now. Because you paid the zakah based on the day that you paid on. So your zakah was due in the beginning of Sha'ban. And you paid it earlier and you had less money. You paid it, for example, in Rajab. And if you waited till Sha'ban, you have more money. That you would pay more zakah. But now you paid in Rajab with whatever money you have. So that means next year to pay your zakah on Rajab. Right. Unless you pay it earlier, and then on the day where it's usually you pay your zakah, see if there's something more that you need to pay zakah on. No. Right. And that's why with the ease of people when it comes to zakah, you don't have to wait till the day that you're supposed to give zakah. Any condition that you see, sometimes you're not able to find someone that deserves the zakah. So throughout the year, if you see someone that deserves the zakah, give them with the intention of zakah. And your zakah is still 6 months from now. But give them and count this as from your next year's zakah. Then when the next year, when after the 6 months passes, then you see how much zakah you're supposed to pay. You already gave that, then you subtract that and you give whatever is left. Yes, now, yes, if a person has his zakah is the beginning of Ramadan, and he's intended to give it to a specific person or anyone, it doesn't have to be a specific person, but then the one that it deserves the zakah comes 2 weeks or whatever time before the zakah, and he asks for the money, give him the money, and that's for the zakah that is after 2 weeks now. One question, 2 questions here, inshallah, and we'll stop till Maghrib, inshallah. What should a person do if they prayed and they were unaware they didn't have wudu? If a person prayed and they did not have wudu and they're aware of that and it's clear, that means the salah is invalid. They have to make wudu and repeat the salah. This is, of course, not doubt. He, for sure, or if he's doubt, even if he has doubt whether he made wudu or not, that means he's not in wudu. He has to make up the salah after wudu. What's the ruling on decorating a place with lights and adornment, calling it Ramadan decorations or for Eid decoration? Is this an innovation or imitation of the kuffar? The ulama, when they answer these things, this is a I don't want to say detailed answer, but we should avoid these types of things. This is not from our ways. And this is a very deep concept in the deen of Islam. We don't need decorations to be able to be close to Allah or to like it or to remind us of Ramadan and it feels Ramadan. We need to have the children to have the feelings of Ramadan and things of that nature. This is not a valid argument. We always tend to like to have these types of feelings and things like this, but it's the actions that makes Ramadan and makes the good deeds and so on. So even with the children, they should see in our actions the importance of Ramadan, and there is fasting, and there is the night prayer, not the zina and the decoration. Eid is different. Eid is celebrations and things like this. You do whatever in one's norm, as long as it's not imitating of others. So a person, the matter is much loose and easier for the Eid, as the ulama they say. But for Ramadan does not need decorations, decoration of the heart. Inshallah, that needs to be done with the ibadah and the devotion in our worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wallahu a'lam, continue inshallah ta'ala after Salatul Maghrib. Wa sallallahu wa sallam wa barak ala Muhammadin wa sahbihi wa sallam. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.